The night air was heavy with strange smells, the scent of smoke, oil, and alien spices mixing into one strange breath of the city, in the heart of the dark market. Under a roof made of steel plates and flickering neon signs, a crowd gathered for the night's most secret event. The auction here, under the dim glow of hanging lamps, creatures, slaves, and rare beings were sold to the highest bidder. Some came to find workers, others came to find fighters, but most came to find entertainment in the suffering of the weak. In the farthest corner, away from the main stage, stood a small cage made of black metal. Inside, chained by her wrists and ankles, sat a young alien girl. Her hair, though dirty, still shone like threads of silver under the pale light. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with health, but with the last sparks of a dying fire. Her skin bore the marks of cruelty. Bruises, scars, and burns told the story of her days. She did not cry. She did not beg. She only sat still, as if she had already accepted the end. The crowd that passed her cage barely gave her a glance. "She's too weak," one alien muttered. "Not worth the credits," another said with a laugh. To them, she was nothing but broken property, too damaged to be of any use. Through the crowd walked a human, tall, wearing a weather-worn jacket and boots that had walked many miles across many worlds. His name was Captain Daniel Hayes, a man who had seen the worst parts of the galaxy. He had no reason to be here tonight, at least not for the kind of business the market was known for. But when his eyes fell on the girl in the cage, he stopped walking. There was something in her gaze, faint but unbroken, like a flame refusing to die even in the storm. Daniel walked closer, ignoring the foul looks from the guards. The girl raised her head slowly. Meeting his eyes for a moment, neither moved. It was as if the noise of the market faded, leaving only the silent exchange between them. He saw pain in her eyes, but also a strange strength. And she saw something she had never seen before in the eyes of anyone who looked at her. Not greed, not hunger, but a quiet promise. The auctioneer, a thick-skinned alien with sharp teeth, noticed Daniel's interest. "You there, human? Looking for a pet?" he sneered. "She's nothing but a scrap of flesh. I'll start the bidding low. Maybe she'll make a servant if you're lucky." The crowd laughed. Some shouted insults. Others looked bored. The bidding began. A few hands were raised, but the offers were small. No one wanted to waste much on a girl they thought wouldn't survive a week. Then Daniel's voice cut through the room, steady and firm. 5,000 credits. He said. The crowd turned, shocked. 5,000. For that? Someone spat in disbelief. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed with greed. Well. The human's got a taste for trash, he said, raising his gavel. But before he could call it, another bidder raised the price. Daniel didn't flinch. 10,000, he said, without hesitation. Gasps filled the air. It was more than triple what anyone would pay for a healthy slave, let alone one who looked ready to collapse. The rival bidders quickly backed away. They didn't see what Daniel saw. They only saw wasted money. But Daniel wasn't buying a servant. He was buying a chance to save someone who had been given no reason to believe in kindness. The auctioneer slammed the gavel. Sold to the human, he announced, his voice full of satisfaction. The guards unlocked the cage, the heavy chains clinking as they pulled the girl out. She stumbled, but caught herself, her legs trembling under the weight of her restraints. Daniel stepped forward, catching her arm gently to steady her. She froze at his touch, eyes wide as if waiting for pain to follow. But none came, only a quiet voice. "You're safe now," Daniel said. She didn't believe it, not yet, but something deep inside her wanted to. The crowd watched with mixed expressions, curiosity, disgust, and confusion. Some whispered, "Why would a human waste so much?" Others shook their heads, thinking him a fool. Daniel ignored them all. He took the girl's chains in his hand. Not as an owner, but as someone already planning how to break them. As they walked out of the market, the flickering lights fading behind them. The girl glanced at him once more. Her voice was barely a whisper, almost lost to the noise of the city. "Why?" she asked. Daniel looked ahead, his face calm but his words carrying weight. "Because everyone deserves to be free," he said. And though she did not yet understand, those words would be the first spark of a fire that would change both their lives. The ship's engines hummed softly as Daniel guided it away from the dark market. The city lights below faded into the distance, replaced by the endless black of space. In the small cargo hold, the alien girl sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. The chains on her wrists and ankles clinked quietly whenever she moved. She kept her head down, eyes fixed on the metal floor. Daniel glanced back at her from the cockpit, wondering how many years she had been living like this when the ship was safely in hyperspace. Daniel walked over. He crouched down in front of her, keeping his voice gentle. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her shoulders tightened, as if expecting him to strike her. Daniel sighed softly, realizing trust would not come easily. He noticed the cuff's alien tech, sleek but cruel. With sharp inner edges that bit into her skin, the metal was embedded deep, almost fused with her flesh in places. They weren't simple chains, they were prison locks, designed to stay until the owner entered a release code. He reached out slowly, showing his empty hands. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. Her eyes flickered toward him for a second, full of doubt. "I'm Daniel," he added, trying to make himself sound less like a stranger. Still, no reply. Instead, she turned her head away, her silver hair falling over her face. Hiding her expression, Daniel stood and walked to the storage locker, pulling out a small medical kit. He sat on the floor beside her and carefully began cleaning the wounds on her wrists. She winced but didn't pull away. The skin under the cuffs was raw and bleeding. He applied a soothing gel, his touch steady and patient. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Finally, in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she said something in her language. Daniel activated his wrist translator. The device blinked, then translated her words into his ear. "Please, just make it quick." The meaning hit him like a blow. She thought he had bought her only to end her life. Daniel shook his head slowly, meeting her gaze. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said firmly. "I'm here to help you walk free again." Her eyes widened slightly. As if those words didn't make sense in her world, she stared at him for a long moment, searching for the lie, but his voice carried no cruelty, no mockery, only truth. Hours passed in silence. Daniel gave her a blanket and a bottle of water. She drank slowly, watching him like a cornered animal studying its captor. When she finally spoke again, it was just one word, "Lyra." Daniel paused. "Your name?" he asked. She gave a tiny nod. "Lyra," he repeated, as if saying it would make her real again. That night, Daniel sat in the cockpit, running scans on her restraints. The results made his jaw tighten. The cuffs were registered to the Zareth Syndicate, a powerful and ruthless group that controlled entire sectors. Anyone who interfered with their property was marked for death. Removing the chains would be like painting a target on his own back. He leaned back in his seat, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. "Looks like we're both in trouble now," he muttered. In the cargo hold, Lyra lay under the blanket, but her eyes stayed open. She listened to the hum of the ship. It was a strange sound, gentle compared to the clanging of chains she had known for so long. Her mind replayed his words, "I'm here to help you walk free." She didn't trust him yet, but for the first time in years, she felt the smallest flicker of hope. The next morning, Daniel entered the hold with a tray of food. Not the thin, tasteless rations she was used to, but warm bread, fruit slices, and a steaming cup of tea. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Eat," he said simply, placing it near her. She hesitated before picking up a piece of bread. Nibbling cautiously, when nothing bad happened, she took another bite, then another. Daniel smiled faintly. "You're stronger than you think," he said. She froze at the compliment, unused to hearing kindness. Later, Daniel knelt beside her again, holding a small scanner. "I'm going to get these chains off you," he said. Lyra shook her head quickly. "They will come for you," she warned. "I know," he replied. Her eyes searched his face, looking for fear, but she found only determination. "Why?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "Because no one deserves to live in chains." And in that moment, something shifted between them. Lyra still didn't trust him fully. But she no longer saw him as just another owner. She saw him as something she thought didn't exist anymore in the galaxy, a human who cared. The hum of the ship surrounded them. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, and somewhere in that vast darkness, both of them knew the chains wouldn't stay forever. The ship drifted through the outer rim, its engines running low to avoid attention. Daniel sat at the cockpit console, studying the scans of Lyra's cuffs for the 10th time. Every reading told him the same thing. These weren't just ordinary restraints. They were built with a syndicate signature code that could only be unlocked with their master key. Without that key, the cuffs would send a tracking signal to every syndicate outpost in range. It was a perfect trap. Anyone trying to help her would be hunted down. Lyra sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, her knees drawn up under the blanket Daniel had given her. She didn't speak, but her eyes kept moving, taking in every control, every light, every sound of the ship. There was a time when she had piloted ships herself. Once, long ago, before the chains, before the dark markets. Before her clan vanished, Daniel noticed the way she was watching and finally broke the silence. "You used to fly, didn't you?" he asked. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "My clan were star seekers," she said softly. "We traveled from world to world, mapping the hidden paths between the stars." Her voice carried both pride and sadness. Daniel leaned back, resting his hands on the console. "What happened?" he asked. Lyra's eyes dimmed. "The Zareth Syndicate happened," she replied. "They came in the night, took our ship, killed the ones who fought, and sold the rest." Her hands tightened into fists, the cuffs digging into her skin. "Was young, and they wanted someone they could break slowly." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I can't change what happened," he said. "But I can make sure you're not chained to them anymore." Lyra looked at him sharply. "You think? You can fight them?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "I've fought worse," he said. Though he knew the truth was far from that simple, he pulled up a star map and pointed to a flickering red marker. "This," he said, "is a place called Black Hollow. It's a hidden asteroid base run by an outlaw mechanic who owes me a favor. If anyone can remove those cuffs without setting off the alarm, it's him." Lyra studied the map, her brow furrowed. "It's in Syndicate territory," she said. Daniel shrugged. "Then we'll just have to be quick." Hours later, the ship slipped through the shadow of a massive gas giant. Its rings sparkled with frozen dust as they passed. Ahead, a jagged asteroid drifted alone in the darkness, its surface dotted with faint lights. Daniel brought the ship down slowly toward a narrow landing bay carved into the rock. The bay doors opened, and a tall, thin alien with metal arms waved them in. "Long-time Hayes," the mechanic said with a crooked grin. "What trouble have you dragged in this time?" Daniel didn't waste words. He stepped aside, revealing Lyra. The mechanic's grin faded when he saw the cuffs. "You're out of your mind," he said. "Those are Zeri's locks. You touch them, you sign your own death." Daniel met his gaze. "Can you do it?" The mechanic stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. "For you? Fine. But when the Syndicate comes knocking, I'm not here." They led Lyra into the workshop. The air thick with the smell of oil and burnt wiring. The mechanic set her. Hands on the workbench, examining the cuffs closely. "Whoever put these on you wanted you to suffer," he muttered. He reached for a set of delicate tools, his metal fingers moving with surprising precision. "Hold still," he said. "If I slip, these things could lock tighter." Lyra swallowed hard but didn't pull away. Daniel stood beside her, ready to steady her if she flinched. Minutes passed in tense silence. The mechanic worked quickly, sparks jumping from the cuffs as he bypassed one security layer after another. Daniel's eyes flicked to the door every few seconds. Half expecting armed thugs to burst in, Lyra kept her eyes on Daniel's face instead of the tools. Somehow, focusing on him made the fear easier to bear. Finally, the mechanic looked up. "One more cut," he said, "and they're off." He pressed a final tool into the lock, and with a sharp click, the cuffs on her wrists sprang open. The weight that had been part of her for so long fell away. Clattering to the floor, Lyra stared at her freed hands as if they didn't belong to her. Her voice trembled. "There. Gone," she whispered. Daniel gave her a small smile. "First step to freedom," he said. But before they could celebrate, a harsh alarm blared from the corner of the workshop. The mechanic cursed. "They know," he said. "The cuffs sent." "A signal before I killed the link." Daniel's expression hardened. "How long?" he asked. 5 minutes, maybe less." The mechanic replied. Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand. "Then we're leaving now," he said. They ran for the ship. The sound of the alarm echoing in the narrow metal corridors. Lyra's legs struggled. To keep up, she was still weak. But Daniel didn't let go. As the hangar doors opened, the cold black of space waited for them. Behind them, the mechanic shouted, "Hayes, you owe me for this." Daniel didn't look back. "I'll pay you when I'm alive," he called. The ship's engines roared to life, lifting them off the asteroid just as they cleared the bay. A shadow fell across the viewport, a syndicate ship dropping out. Of hyperspace, Lyra's breath caught. "They're here," she said. Daniel's hands moved over the controls. "Then let's see how badly they want you back," he replied. The chase had begun. Asterisk. The stars outside blurred as Daniel pushed the engines to their limit. The ship shuddered under the sudden burst of speed, warning lights flashing across the console. Behind them, the syndicate ship followed, sleek and deadly. Its black hull, glinting under the faint starlight, it was not a patrol ship. This was a Hunter-class vessel, built for pursuit, and it was closing in fast. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, gripping the sides as the ship jolted through evasive maneuvers. Her wrists were bare now, the heavy cuffs gone. But the ghost of their weight still lingered in her mind. She could feel the old fear creeping back, the fear of being dragged into chains again. Daniel glanced at her, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Stay with me, Lyra," he said. "They'll try to corner us, but I know a way out." The Hunter ship fired the first volley. Bolts of red energy streaked past their hull, lighting up the darkness. One blast grazed their wing, sending the ship into a brief spin before Daniel steadied it again. Lyra's breathing quickened. But she kept her eyes on the navigation screen. She noticed something. The Hunter was predicting Daniel's moves. "They know your patterns," she said. Daniel's mouth twitched into a grim smile. "Then I'll have to surprise them." He pulled the ship into a sudden dive. Weaving between chunks of drifting rock from an ancient asteroid belt, the Hunter followed its weapons firing in calculated bursts. Shields at 40%, the ship's AI warned. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We won't last long like this," he muttered. Lyra's eyes darted to the tactical display. "There's a dead moon ahead," she said, pointing. Daniel followed her gaze. "That's not a hiding spot," he replied. "It's a trap waiting to happen, but it was their only chance." Daniel angled the ship toward the barren moon, skimming low over its cratered surface. The hunter stayed close, its engines howling in the thin atmosphere. Then, just as they passed over a jagged ridge, Daniel cut the main engines and dropped the ship behind the rock formation. The sudden stop made the hunter overshoot. Losing sight of them for a few precious seconds, Daniel didn't waste them. He hit the thrusters at full power, shooting upward. In a steep climb, the hunter spotted them too late and swung around. Now forced to chase from behind again, Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. "Daniel, they'll call for reinforcements," she warned. "I know," he said. "That's why. We end this before they can." His fingers danced over the controls, activating a hidden weapon system in the ship's underbelly. 2 plasma torpedoes locked onto the hunter's heat signature. Daniel waited for the perfect moment. The hunter fired again, a direct hit to their rear shields, but Daniel didn't flinch. "Now," he whispered. Pressing the launch button, the torpedo streaked toward the hunter, leaving glowing trails in the thin atmosphere. The enemy pilot tried to evade, twisting the ship in a desperate roll. But one torpedo clipped its left wing, exploding in a burst of fire. The second smashed into its rear engine, sending it spiraling downward toward the moon's surface. Daniel didn't stay to watch the crash. He knew a Hunter-class ship would send out a distress signal before dying. "Time to move," he said, pulling them back into open space for a moment. The cockpit was quiet, except for the steady hum of the engines. Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You made yourself." Their enemy, Daniel, gave a small shrug. "Guess I'm bad at making friends," he replied. But the truth was clear. There was no turning back now. The syndicate would not forgive what he had done. They flew in silence for a while. Lyra's gaze wandered to her bare wrists. The skin was still raw, but the freedom felt unreal. Every movement reminded her the chains were gone. Yet freedom came with a new weight, the knowledge that someone had risked everything for her. She looked at Daniel again. "You could have left me there," she said. "You could have walked away." Daniel didn't take his eyes off the stars ahead. "Yeah," he said quietly, "but I didn't want to." Hours later, they docked at a quiet refueling station on the edge of neutral space. Daniel checked the ship's damage while Lyra stayed inside. Watching the stars from the viewport, her thoughts were a tangled mix of gratitude, fear, and confusion. She had been owned, caged, and silenced for so long that she didn't know how to be anything else. But now, with each passing moment beside Daniel, she began to wonder, maybe she could be more. Maybe she could be free. Truly free. When Daniel came back aboard, he carried a small bag of supplies. He handed her a ration bar and a new thermal jacket. "You'll need this," he said. Lyra took it slowly, running her fingers over the soft fabric. It was the first gift she had received in years. "Where are we going now?" she asked. Daniel's eyes held a flicker of determination. "Somewhere they'll never think to look for us," he said. "But to get there, we'll have to cross their territory first." The words hung in the air like a shadow. Lyra knew what that meant. More danger, more pursuit, more hunters. But as the ship's engines roared to life again, she also knew something else. She wasn't running alone anymore, and for the first time in years, that thought made her feel strong. The days that followed were quieter, but the shadow of the syndicate never truly left. Daniel kept the ship moving, never staying in one place for more than a few hours. Every jump through hyperspace was another step away from the last battle, but also another step deeper into dangerous territory. Lyra stayed mostly in the cargo bay at first, still wary, still adjusting to the strange feeling of being unchained. One morning, Daniel found her standing in front of the small viewport. Her bare feet were planted on the cold metal floor. Her hands rested lightly on the glass as she stared at the endless stars. "Morning," he said gently, stepping closer. She didn't look at him. but her voice was softer than before. "I don't remember the last time I saw them without bars in the way," she said. Daniel stayed beside her, letting the silence stretch between them. "You'll see more than stars," he replied. "You'll see places you've never dreamed of." Lyra turned her head slightly, studying him. "You speak as if it's easy," she said. Daniel gave a small shrug. "It's not easy," he admitted. "But if you only see the walls around you, you'll never see what's beyond them." That day, Daniel decided it was time for her to start walking again. Her legs had grown weak from years of captivity. Every step was shaky, her balance unsteady. Daniel stood a few feet away in the training room, holding out his hand. "Come on, you can." "Do this," he encouraged. Lyra frowned, her pride battling her fear. "I'm not a child," she said. "I know," Daniel replied with a small smile. "But even warriors have to learn to walk again after a long fall." She took a hesitant step toward him, then another. Her muscles trembled, and she swayed slightly. Daniel reached out to steady her, but she shook her head. "No," she said. "I can stand." And she did, holding herself upright until she felt the strength return to her knees. Daniel nodded approvingly. "That's the spirit," he said. Over the next few days, Lyra began joining him in the cockpit. She asked about the controls, the star maps, the engine systems. Her old instincts as an explorer returned slowly. Daniel let her take the helm during long stretches of empty space. Her hands moved over the controls with growing confidence. "You're a fast learner," Daniel remarked one evening. "I was a pilot before the chains," she replied, her tone carrying both pride and sorrow during one of their breaks. Daniel prepared a small meal in the galley. It wasn't much, just warm stew and bread, but Lyra ate with quiet focus. He watched her, noticing how she no longer hunched her shoulders in fear. "How's the leg strength?" he asked. "Better," she said, "but not enough. You'll get there," Daniel assured her. "You're stronger than you think." That night, as the ship cruised through a calm sector, an alarm suddenly blared. Daniel rushed to the cockpit, checking the sensors. A small craft was approaching from behind at high speed. Lyra's heart jumped. "Syndicate?" she asked. Daniel scanned the signal. Not Syndicate, but trouble all the same, he said. The craft was an independent raider, likely a scavenger looking for an easy target. The raider hailed them. "Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded." A voice growled over the comm. Daniel's lips curved into a dangerous smile. "Lyra, you up for helping me scare someone off?" She hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "Follow my lead," Daniel said. They opened a channel, Daniel speaking calmly. "You're making a mistake," he told the raider captain. Meanwhile, Lyra tapped into the comm system, sending a false reading that made their ship look heavily armed. Within moments, the raider's sensors picked up the fake signal. Showing multiple weapon systems locked on, the raider hesitated. "You're not worth the fight," the voice muttered before cutting the connection. The small craft veered away into the darkness. When the danger passed, Daniel looked at Lyra with a grin. "Nice work," he said. She smiled faintly, the expression awkward, as if her face wasn't used to it. "I guess I remember more than I thought," she admitted. "That's the thing about freedom," Daniel said. "It brings parts of you back you thought were gone forever." Later, as they sat in the dimly lit galley, Lyra asked a question she had been holding back for days. "Why are you doing this, Daniel?" she asked quietly. "You could have sold me, abandoned me, or left me at the first station." Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady. "Because you remind me of someone I couldn't save," he said, "and I won't make that mistake twice." The words settled heavy in the air. Lyra didn't press for details, but something in her chest shifted. For the first time in years, she felt not just rescued, but chosen. Outside, the stars moved past in silent streams of light, and inside, step by step, Lyra was learning not just to walk again, but to stand for herself. The calm days didn't last. Daniel knew they wouldn't, and Lyra had begun to feel the same. The galaxy had a way of hunting down anyone who tried to slip away from its chains. And the Zare Syndicate never forgot a debt when the warning alarm echoed through the ship's narrow halls. Both of them were already moving to the cockpit. The sensors showed a single ship tailing them. It was fast, far too fast for a standard patrol craft. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she studied the silhouette on the screen. "That's not a scavenger," she said. Daniel's jaw tightened. "No," he replied. "That's a Syndicate hunter." Hunters weren't ordinary enforcers. They were elite, personally chosen to track and retrieve valuable targets if one was after you. It meant someone had paid a high price to see you brought back alive. Lyra's stomach turned at the thought. "They've sent him for me," she whispered. Daniel didn't look at her, his hands steady on the controls. "They'll have to get through me first," he said. The hunter's voice came over the comm, cold and precise. "Human, you have something that belongs to us. Hand her over, and I'll let you live." Daniel leaned forward, his tone dripping with mockery. "Funny," he said. "I thought freedom belonged to her now." There was a pause. Then the hunter's voice hardened. "You won't be so brave when I tear your ship apart." The first barrage came without warning. Bolts of green energy slammed into their shields, making the ship shudder violently. Lyra grabbed the side of the console to steady herself. "We can't outrun him in open space," she said quickly. Daniel's eyes flicked to the star map. "Then we don't," he replied. "We draw him in." Ahead lay a dead moon, its surface cracked and littered with jagged cliffs, a perfect place for an ambush. Daniel dove toward it. Weaving between rocky spires and narrow canyons, the hunter followed, his ship moving like a predator through the shadows. Lyra's heart raced as she watched him keep pace. "He's not losing us," she said. "He's not supposed to." Daniel answered. They flew deeper into a canyon so tight the walls scraped the ship's shields. The hunter stayed right behind them, confident his prey was trapped. Daniel glanced at Lyra. "Remember how you faked those weapon readings against the raider?" She nodded quickly. "Do it again," he said. "But this time, make it look like we're carrying something unstable." Lyra's fingers flew over the controls, sending false signals into the hunter's scanners. Within seconds, his systems would read that their ship's engine core was dangerously overloaded. As expected, the hunter closed in, eager to force them into surrender before the reactor exploded. Daniel waited until the last possible moment, then yanked the ship upward. The hunter shot forward into a narrow tunnel, unaware of what Daniel had planned. With a flick of a switch, Daniel triggered a controlled blast from the ship's underbelly cannons. The explosion didn't hit the hunter directly. Instead, it struck a massive overhang of rock above him. The canyon walls groaned as the stone collapsed. The hunter's ship was forced to swerve hard to avoid being crushed, clipping one of his wings in the process. Smoke and sparks spilled from the damage. Lyra gripped the armrest. "Did we get him?" she asked. Daniel's eyes stayed on the scanner. "Not yet. But we bought ourselves a window." They shot upward, breaking free from the canyon into open space. Daniel angled the ship toward the far side of the moon, but the hunter's ship limped after them, slower now, but still dangerous. A voice came over the comm again. This time rougher, filled with anger. "You're clever, human. I'll enjoy breaking you before I take her." Lyra's hand clenched into a fist. "No," she said suddenly. "I'm done running from him." Daniel looked at her. "You have a plan?" he asked. Her eyes flashed with a spark he hadn't seen before. "Yes," she said, "but you're not going to like it." She explained quickly. The hunter's ship was damaged, but its heat vents would still be open for cooling. If she could lock their targeting sensors on that weak point and fire a concentrated burst, they might disable him completely. Daniel hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Do it," he said. Lyra slid into the weapons console, her fingers moving with the precision of someone who had once known freedom. She locked onto the hunter's heat vent and fired. The burst of energy slammed into the damaged ship, making it spin out of control. The hunter cursed over the comm, his voice fading as his vessel drifted toward the moon's surface. Daniel didn't wait to see him crash. He pushed their engines to full, leaving the dead moon far behind. When the danger had passed, the silence in the cockpit was heavy. Daniel looked over at Lyra. "You handled that like a pilot," he said. She allowed herself a small, tired smile. "I told you," she replied. "I was one." Before they took everything, Daniel gave a slow nod. "Then maybe it's time to take it back," he said. Lyra stared out at the stars, the fear in her chest slowly being replaced by something else. Determination. For years, the chains had to find her, but now she had begun to fight back, and with Daniel at her side, she wasn't planning to stop. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast sea of light and shadow. The hunter was gone. But Daniel knew the Syndicate's reach was far from over. For now, they had won a battle, not the war. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, her fingers resting on the controls. She stared at the streaking lights of hyperspace, a faint smile touching her lips. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of chains only in memory, not on her skin. Daniel leaned back in his chair, letting the hum of the ship fill the quiet. "You did good back there," he said. Lyra turned her head toward him, her eyes holding a quiet strength. "I'm not the same girl you found in that cage," she replied. Daniel's lips curved slightly. "No, you're not," he agreed. The next stop was a small free colony on the edge of Syndicate territory. It was a place where laws were loose, but freedom was real. As the ship descended toward the dusty landing field, Lyra's heart beat faster. The air shimmered with heat, and the colony's domes rose from the sand like giant shells. She had dreamed of a day like this, though she never believed it would come when the ship's ramp lowered. Lyra hesitated at the edge. The sunlight poured over her, warm and blinding. Daniel stood beside her. "It's your step to take," he said quietly. Her bare feet touched the ground, a texture strange after so many years of cold metal. She closed her eyes, breathing in air that was not recycled. Not owned by anyone, the market streets were alive with color and sound. Merchants called out their offers. Children ran laughing between stalls. No one stared at her like she was a prize to be sold. No one reached for chains. It felt unreal. Like walking through a dream, Daniel stayed close, his presence steady but not controlling. He let her lead, and she found herself moving with a confidence she hadn't known she had. In a quiet corner of the colony, they found a small repair shop. The owner was an older alien with kind eyes. When he saw Lyra's wrists, he offered her a small jar of healing salve. "No charge," he said. Lyra blinked, unused to kindness from strangers. She took it, murmuring her thanks. Daniel watched the exchange with a faint smile. "It's different when no one owns you, isn't it?" he asked later. She nodded slowly. "It's bigger than I thought," she admitted. That night, they sat outside the colony's small inn. The stars overhead were sharp and bright. Lyra leaned back, letting the night breeze wash over her. Daniel broke the silence. "You know you're free to stay here," he said. "No Syndicate ships come this far without a fight." Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "And what about you?" she asked. Daniel shrugged. "I'll keep moving," he replied. "That's what I do." Lyra's gaze returned to the stars. She thought of the girl she had been in the cage, silent, hopeless, certain her life was over. She thought of the long nights on Daniel's ship, learning to walk again, to fight again. Freedom was hers now, but it didn't feel right to keep it without purpose. Finally, she turned back to him. "I'm not staying," she said. "I'm coming with you, Daniels." Brow rose slightly. "You sure?" He asked. "This isn't the safe path." Lyra's voice was firm. "I didn't survive all this just to stand still," she said. "I want to help others like me, those still in chains." Daniel studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Then we'll need a better ship," he said. Her lips curved into the first genuine smile he had ever seen from her. They left the colony at dawn. The suns rose over the sand, painting the sky in gold and red. Lyra stood at the viewport as the ground fell away beneath them. Her hands rested easily on the controls. Daniel watched her, sensing the change in her. She was no longer just someone he had rescued. She was his partner now, in every way that mattered, as they broke through the planet's atmosphere. Lyra glanced at him. "Where to first?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "Wherever there's someone who needs a hand breaking their chains," he said. Her grip on the controls tightened with quiet determination. "Then, let's not waste time." She replied. The ship's engines roared, carrying them into the open black. Behind them was the life she had been forced into. Ahead was the life she had chosen. The stars stretched wide, endless and waiting. And in that moment, Lyra knew one truth above all. Freedom wasn't something given. It was something you took, held, and never let go. And she would never let it go again.